following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Welcome to The Right to Know. Today my guest is Mr. Carl Seidel, who is running for State Representative in Ward 1.
That's right.
Thank you for coming. Welcome.
Well, thank you for the invitation.
No, it's my pleasure. I noticed in your mail that you went to school out in the Midwest, Wisconsin, and Notre Dame.
Right.
Are you originally from there?
No, originally from New York.
You are?
Yeah, I traveled a little bit.
You did, huh? Notre Dame was always one of my favorite schools, you know. So, and you're a chemist, and you have quite a bio here about nuclear stuff. What made you get into that?
Well, it was an interest of, I went to Wisconsin because they had a large school, had a variety of choices, and they gave me a scholarship.
That's always good.
So back then the tuition was a little bit easier too, you know, but I enjoyed it out there. It was different. I had gone to a very good high school with a large number of kids, 700 in my graduating class. But I just took up on chemistry. I didn't know whether I was going into engineering or just straight chemistry. I stuck it out in chemistry.
So a good segue would be to what made you get into politics. I know is that you ran for a House representative. You were representative for 4 years, I believe.
Yeah.
And what prompted you to get into
Well,
politics?
I had retired. My wife had passed away.
I'm sorry to hear that.
And she, you know, I just wanted to stay active. And somebody convinced me that getting into politics was interesting. And the first time I ran, I didn't win. The second time, I did win, and went on from there. And I found it very rewarding. It's something I thought I could contribute to. And I worked on the Parks, Public Works, and Highways Department. And under Gene Chandler, he was the well, first of all, there was the Democrats the first year I was up there, the first term. The second term, Gene Chandler was chair, and I got appointed vice chair. I found that very, you know, very interesting. The political situation, I really didn't know too much about how it worked up there.
But you're well seasoned now, I assume.
Well, I think so. I think I got good training up there, and I know how most of it works. I'd like to get back in there again because I still think with this proposed $12.6 billion budget, I'd like to go in there and make sure we don't come anywhere close to that.
Right. There's, I noticed that there are a number of issues on your website that you talk about. One is health care, you know. Tell me about, you say, you know, you give people more competitive options. What do you feel about Obamacare?
No, I don't care for it at all.
What do you find wrong with that?
Well, I think he's forcing you into one policy covers everybody, and I don't think that's going to work. I think that's you lump everything in. You have to get everything, all these different coverages, which of course increases your policy, and then they're increasing the part that you have to pay. But I think I'd like to see more competition. It's just like you have in the auto industry.
Right. Yeah. Is that why you are proponent for being able to purchase drugs outside the country? Do you feel that the pharmaceutical industry is overpricing us? And
well, part of it is they price what they can get in each country. It's unfortunate. I mean, they have a very complicated way of doing it, but it's because every country is different. And if they want to sell there, they have to go along with some of the guidelines, especially in Europe. But even in Europe, even with the European community, they have a lot of variations over there. But it's not just the drugs, it's the health care in general. I think that if you have competition, you have people who are looking to give the best service for the most reasonable price.
Right. Who do you feel enables that lack of competition?
Well, it enables it by having just one program that you have to sign up for.
Right.
I don't think they should restrict people. I mean, one of the reasons health insurance is high in New Hampshire, even before Obamacare, was that we had too many mandatory coverages. You know, I didn't want to pay for bariatric surgery, but you know, I mean, if somebody felt that they were going to get it, that maybe they want to be covered for that. But there's a number of other things that are required, and that just drives up the price.
Right. There are a number of people who come in from out of state and allow to be put on a healthcare system. Is how do we combat that, or how do we fix that?
Okay, you're talking about the people who get Medicaid coverage and that type?
Yes.
I think it's the people that have to have something like that. That's sort of, well, there's a coverage of health insurance, just like the auto insurance. You'd have a, for the people who had either a lot of accidents or very expensive cars or whatever, there's a, you know, there's a category that suits them. If they have to have, you know, some coverage.
Yep. And also you talked about a lot of jobs, you know, and the economic growth plan. Tell me what you think can stimulate it, and what's stopping it from being stimulated?
Well, I think there's a lot of rules and regulations here, and it's not easy to start a company in New Hampshire. When I was there in the 2011 legislature, I served on a committee of rules and regulations that looked into some of the things. And a lot of the small businesses were just hounded to death by different regulations from different departments. We started something, and I'm not sure what the status is now, which was called a one-stop shop, where the state would have a place you could go and find out all the different agencies you had to work with, and the rules and regulations that entailed that. And I think they were headed in the right direction. I don't think we're there yet.
Right. A lot of listeners probably don't know about the right to work law. Why don't you tell them what it is and what your position is on that? Well,
in the right to work law that I see is you can have unions, but you can't force people to join a union. I mean, if a union is good and it serves a purpose, people are going to want to join it. But I don't think for whatever reasons, if somebody just doesn't want to join a union, he should be able to be eligible for a job. And I think that's the unfair portion of that. And then the companies are actually learning how to deal with their employees much better. You know, 50 years ago, maybe, you know, we had a problem with that. As people are finding out, I worked for DuPont. DuPont was a large company, a little bit paternalistic in its way, but they had facilities with unions and they had facilities without unions, and it worked out well.
Yeah. Do you think the union's position, I believe they feel that if you don't have to join them, you have to pay their dues. How do you feel about that policy?
Well, I still think that they have to sell their services, the union, just like the company has to sell its services to its customers. If they have something special, maybe they take over the health care part and the dues pay the health care for the union, and then you go for, you know, wherever the union has coverage, they'll have health coverage. You know, that might be the best way to sell the union to any of the employees. But again, the management of a company doesn't have a union generally, and I think any employee should have the option of not being part of the union.
So if companies treat employees well, they would not require a union because they feel that their work environment is healthy and their benefits are good, and it creates a better environment to work for?
That's right.
Basically
and
saying
you
that?
have to have better communications among management to make sure that the employees are being treated equally. I've been fortunate enough to work my whole life in that type of environment. And it works, in my mind.
Yes. I don't know if I'm supposed to agree or disagree with you, so the host here, but I think it's a good point. You say you support a pro-life agenda.
Yes.
That isn't always the Republicans' mindset a lot of times. What makes you, why do you think of pro-life as opposed to?
Well, I just believe that life begins at conception, and that this is the way that you protect life. And part of the government's responsibility is to protect life. So I'm not sure where we want to go from that, but that's the state that I like to see. I know the law says you can have an abortion, but I don't think it's right to do that.
But you want to license the people who do abortions.
Yes,
Yeah.
they want to. Well, one of the things I can never understand, this is a major operation, abortion, for both the patient and the doctor. And I think that the facilities have to be licensed. I mean, we have these little clinics that go through a whole licensing arrangement. Yes, this abortion clinic doesn't have to have that kind of review.
Yeah.
I don't understand that. I did sponsor the thing for parental notification, too, for minors that were undergoing abortion, because I think the parents should know about that, and they should give their approval of, or at least, you know, I think that's a responsibility.
I agree. Let's talk about taxes now. I know that I had Kevin Abad on last week, and he believes that there is enough revenue and spending's out of control. Do you support that position?
In general, yes. The spending is not reviewed. And if you were in a business and you had a project and it was going to cost $1 million, when you set it up, you'd have a set of objectives, and then you'd measure, see how you obtain those objectives, if you did or you didn't. And that's the success or failure of those things. And if you had a procedure and it doesn't work, you don't want to keep on paying to implement that procedure. And I didn't see enough of that check in the checks and balances, okay?
Right.
Up in Concord. And I think some of the agencies have gotten out of control. I think a smaller government's a better government.
Right. You also support a line item veto. Do you have, are you worried that if you have somebody from the opposing party, it would have the same power to do that?
That's what, if it's good for me, it's good for them.
Yeah, right. Because the House or Senate could override that veto.
That's true.
And so that's your, the balance of
the checks and balance.
Checks and balance the system. So I noticed in the city of Nashville right now, there's a big item on the ballot about the CPI index, and they want to change that. What's your position on that?
Well, that's kind of interesting, because I just talked to the mayor about that.
Oh, did you really?
But I noticed that she didn't sign off on that. But I don't think we should. I think we have something that people can identify with.
Right.
She pointed out that she's never actually pushed the cap in Nashua. So it really didn't make much difference, because in her reign, she didn't have any problem getting close to the limit that the CPI index had. The new index would probably give them a little bit more leeway. At least the example she gave me was just a fraction of a % higher. But it's still, when you don't, why mess with what we have when it seems to be working?
Right, right. And the city's pretty well, has a good bond rating at the present time, so
that's control again.
That's right.
And she has some good control, keeping our finances in where they should be.
You also want to prohibit earned income capital gains and sales tax. Let's tell our listeners about that.
Well, the capital gains taxes that they have, interest in capital gains, is nothing but an income tax. And if you're really a purist, you don't want an income tax. I think, I think that we should do away with it. I'd like to see taxes lower all the way around, because I think the government is too large. I think the better we do locally, either with the city or the county, the better, because we have a little bit more control there.
Yeah. What's your feeling on casino gambling?
Well, I tell you, one of the things that bothered me with the bills that we reviewed is they got, the first one was obviously written by lobbyists.
Yes.
And they didn't get better right away. Preferentially, I'm not a real gambler, so I don't participate in that, but I have no objection if it's run right. But I would also like to see anybody who wants to start up something, if they meet a set of conditions, they should be allowed to. I don't know if we should limit to 1 or 2 or even 6.
Right. Well, the pros and cons, that would bring more jobs. The other side of the argument is that it would increase crime.
I don't know if either's as true as they like to believe.
Yeah.
I think you do get more jobs, obviously, but the crime, I don't see any real large crime down at the casinos that are in Connecticut.
Right. Well, Massachusetts is trying to put a casino in, and so they were drawing people from New Hampshire to go to.
Well,
they drive to Foxwoods and other places right now. So
I have relatives in Michigan, and they have a number of casinos there. They're almost like friendly little, what would I say, association meeting houses, because they're not large. They have all the games and everything, but they're probably no bigger than this building. And yet they are able to have small little conventions or shows, you know, a show on beer, for example. Right. They have all the places that now are sprouting up building specialty beers.
What do you feel about the rail service that's been going on for decades and decades around here? It seems to be more of a volatile topic today.
It is. I'm waiting to see what that report says. It's again, it's something that we could probably get to incrementally. I was against the original one, which really said from the border all the way up to Concord. I think that was taking too much. People held out for that, so they got slapped down on it, because the financing just wasn't there. I'd like to see what they propose, both in the number of people, how they coordinate it with the bus service we're now getting, which is excellent in my mind. And I'd like to do it stepwise. You know, one to Pheasant Lane, then maybe downtown Nashua, and then to the airport. And
see what the numbers. So how will we pay for that?
Number of ways, I guess. The way you pay for any service that you're going to get, that somebody gets taxed for. Right. I'd like to see that you know, the ridership would pay for at least 50%, if not more.
Well, I know the MBTA in Massachusetts is not it's in the red, basically. Right. So can we assume that that's also going to be the case here? So someone's going to have to subsidize that somehow. Well,
yeah, and I think the idea of sharing the costs with the MBTA, because they have to bring stuff a little bit further up and everything. That's, you know, if that works out, that's fine. But both of us support it. The Downeaster, which comes all the way from Maine into Boston, is not making money either.
Right. So what do you think the biggest issues are going to be facing the new House this year coming up? What do you...
Well, number one's the budget. When you see that drafted budget, I couldn't understand how they could even show, and I was talking to somebody who's up there in the legislature, and they haven't seen the details yet on it. Right. They just saw the bottom line. But going from our current $10.6 billion to $12.6 billion is too much to chew. Now, maybe it's just a ploy so that they say, well, we'll cut a billion off, but that's still another billion and more than what they're paying now.
And how do they raise the revenue to
that's right,
to support that position?
I don't know. I still don't know how they justify that, or how they came up with it. But I think it's going to be one of the biggest fights you'll ever see.
Do you think the balance in the House will change this year?
I hope so. Yeah. That's why I run it.
As along with the Senate and the governor's office.
The governor's office is the most important, I think. I'd like to see people get out and vote, because I think we need a change. I don't think, you know, I think our current governor is just misleading. She said that she had a big bipartisan budget, and now she's criticizing the budget she was celebrating before. She was part of it mainly because she saw that if she didn't approve it, the default budget was the year before's budget, which was worse.
Right.
So she didn't have much choice.
And she was defeated as a state senator before she ran for governor, and so she was defeated for a particular reason, apparently. So, but it's how do we get the voters to? A lot of voters just say, "Oh, I'm going to vote Democrat. I'm going to vote Republican." They don't really care about the issues. They're just affiliated maybe because of their family history or how they were brought up or whatever the circumstances are. They're very focused on a party affiliation as opposed to the issues. How do we make them more aware of what's going on, and what's the best way to reach them?
Well, hopefully by public access. I
know, that was a good setup, huh?
But I think we both have the same objective, to get people to understand what's going on a little bit more, to take an interest in some particular issues. And I don't know, you can't force feed people. And they are busy now, and I think one of the things is that when you have a poor economy like we do here, people are more worried about putting food on the table and paying the rent than they are about other things which they may feel they can't control. But they can control it by voting. And if you don't like it, you vote them out. That's all.
Well, that seems to have been the modus operandi lately in the last few elections, is that the voters have been unhappy with the people who are in office, and there seems to be a bigger turnover each year, of change.
Yes and no. I think the parties are getting better at getting the voters out on their side. Okay, and I really fault the Republicans for not getting enough voters out at the last election. And that's why, plus the thing that I don't like about the situation in New Hampshire is that we have same-day registration, because you don't have an ability to check those people. And I believe that Secretary Gardner has seen the errors of his ways when he's saying there wasn't fraudulent voting until this last election. A lot of, they checked, it was 15% of our vote registered the last day. I can't believe that number.
So what's the time frame of, what would you feel would be a compatible time to register before you could vote?
Well, I'd like to see people register and have voting over a certain period of time. I lived in Texas for a while, and for 2 weeks before the voting time, you could go down to the city hall and vote. So so people wouldn't have if they had to register then, they could register and get checked out, because they'd have to show the documentation that they were a citizen and that they lived at their address that they said they lived at. You don't just sign a piece of paper.
Well, now you have to bring your license when you vote. So
fortunately, that's
that's a positive thing.
But I think they're trying to change that too.
Yes.
So I don't want to see that.
I'd like to ask you about Common Core. Okay, because I'm very aware of what's going on with our educational system in the city here, and it seems like Common Core was pushed on by the federal and the state government on our school systems here. What would you do? Are you a supporter of Common Core? Do you think we should step back and have given them time, the school board time to comprehend it?
Well, from what I've seen of Common Core, I don't care for it. Okay, I think we should set standards. I think other states have set standards before, and I consider the federal-state involvement was nothing more than bribery. If you didn't take this, you don't get any money. Well, the Board of Education is always hurting for money, so they took it, and they're off and running with it. They're not even listening to their own teachers and union. Here in Nashua, the one group that was starting it was saying that, hey, this isn't going to work. And sometime early in the year, I listened to two people who were on a committee that said that this wasn't even vetted properly. It's more a commercial operation now than anything else. Then it's running, amok in a way.
So who the children are going to get left behind then?
Yeah. Well, the children, again, they're trying to have one thing for all children. And as you know, children learn differently.
Correct.
Children have different backgrounds. children have different languages here in Nashua and Manchester. You got to take that into consideration when you're doing some of these things.
Yeah.
And I think the teachers are going to go off the short end trying to teach this stuff to this mixture of people when they should be separating them a little bit and teaching them to the level that they are able to assimilate.
Mm-hmm. There is a place in New Hampshire called Naturalization. They do that once a month when a number of people from multiple countries, anywhere from 30 to 40 different countries, come in and become citizens. But it's a 5-year process. So with all the people wanting to come into this country, there's some concern with terrorism and things like that. So how do we watch our borders, and how do we, in a city now, I know the city's going to be taking on some of these, displaced people, and
Right.
we're going to have to provide housing and medical care for them and things like that. So that's going to fall on the taxpayers. What's your feeling about that?
Well, I think they have to spread that around. I don't think the federal government's doing a good job on that part of it. I think that you said 5 years. I've heard terrible stories of people taking 10 years to get naturalized. I'm all for straightening and smoothing that out, letting them get naturalized quicker, but have a background check and close our borders. I think that we just have no way of regulating people coming in. And,
It's funny because if you've ever been to one of those ceremonies, the people who have just become new citizens, they're like so happy.
That's right.
And they love our country, and which we take for granted nowadays because we probably born here, grew up here, and we just assume that these are inalienable rights. And these people just really put a focus back on us citizens. We should look at them and say how lucky we are
That's right.
to have that in this country. And I
agree
think
with
we've
you.
lost that with the country. So in our last minute or so, I'd just like you to tell my voters, your voters and my viewers, why they should vote for you.
Well, I think my experience pays. I've served up there. I think what I want for the state is what I think most people want. They want a government that they can trust. They want a government that works well, and they want lower taxes and good economy. And that's really what I'm trying to do. Contribute my part. Yeah. One of 400.
Well, I appreciate you coming on the show. Thank you so much for being part of the show. The Right to Know Public Access Show is aimed at providing knowledge of current issues, policies, and the decision-making process that affects the lives of the citizens of Nashua. My mission is to help the citizens understand city politics, in that they may make informed choices in the city where they live. I wish to inform, educate, and enlighten the people of Nashua because they have the right to know.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.